At the head of Tomales Bay in West Marin County, by the banks of Lagunitas Creek, below the community of Point Reyes Station, and in the shadow of the Point Reyes Peninsula, levees came down. Land was sculpted. Native vegetation took root, and salt water from the bay waited to reclaim a storied dairy ranch. Soon, nature was coming home. The bay is Tomales Bay, a narrow inlet riding from south to north atop the San Andreas Fault. At the southern edge of the bay, the flat land below, is the dairy ranch purchased by the Giacomini family in the 1940s. With the support of the Army Corps of Engineers, the family built dikes and channeled Lagunitas Creek, blocked the intrusion of salt water from Tomales Bay, and ultimately expanded the ranch to 560 acres. In the year 2000, the Giacominis sold their ranch to the federal government to create the wetland that will bear the family's name. The transition, though, is a bittersweet mixture of pride and regret. Rich Giacomini was raised on the ranch and worked it with his father, Waldo, for many decades.
Well, we'd rather still be here in the dairy business. No, I think it's an honor to my father to have his name on it. He put his whole life into this ranch, and he really enjoyed it. He enjoyed what he did, and you know what he accomplished.
We wanted to make sure that it represented the family, so we ended up calling it the Giacomini Wetlands Restoration Project as a tribute to the family that held this land in trust for over 50 years.
In early October of 2008, the transformation from ranch land to wetland was close to completion, and crews worked quickly against the clock. They tore down levees and berms that for years had separated salt water from pasture land. They shoveled and smoothed the marsh soil and seeds onto barren ground. They finished constructing refuges to give threatened black rails and clapper rails high and dry terrain in times of flood. They planted native vegetation to provide the vulnerable rails shelter from their predators. They rolled out blankets to keep soil from eroding, and they cleared sloughs of cattails that would slow incoming water from the bay. To get here, it took 10 years of scientific analysis, careful planning, and hard work, $10 million from many sources, the collaboration of numerous public and private agencies and organizations and volunteers, and the support of the community. Finally, the canvas was almost ready for nature to paint. On a beautiful Saturday afternoon, Dan Rogers carefully carved away the last layers of soil separating Tomales Bay from the old Giacomini Dairy Ranch. A crowd gathered by the lower Tomasini Slough and high on a nearby ridge to watch. Photographs were taken and interviews were conducted by the media. Finally, at 1:25 p.m., the final scraps of dirt gave way, and the water rushed home. For those who came to look, and those who had worked on the project for many years, emotions flowed as freely as the water.
It's just so exciting to see this happen, and it's hard to even describe it. I have to say, I'm a little choked up. But I think the way we're able to do this, to see the water rush in, I mean, it's just that much more special, because it really gives you this sense of immediacy that it's coming back right now. This is it. It's starting. The clock is starting now.
Now, the hand of man created this blockage of nature some time ago, and the hand of man has now brought it back. And that's what's so exciting. And whatever happens after this point, after today, is up to nature. It's not up to us.
The next afternoon, a big celebration was held by the Red Barn at Point Reyes National Seashore.
You know, future generations may not remember what happened here today or what we experienced, but my grandchildren and great-grandchildren and your grandchildren will forever appreciate what we did here today, or what we accomplished. This wetland is for future generations, and thank you very much.
Toast to the future of the Giacomini wetlands. May it be full of wildlife, good water quality, and great things in the future. Hear, hear.
But the biggest event of the day had taken place a little earlier. On that Sunday morning, 500 people from the community walked across the old ranch to witness for themselves the rising tide inch in.
I honestly didn't know your heart could break with joy. But yesterday when we breached the levee, that was the only way I could describe it, to see the water come through after so much work and effort and just passion to get this job done, and to have it, Mother Nature just break through the levee and come in. The only way I can describe it is joy. And here we are today seeing this first high tide come into this tiny little channel and literally see the water creep back in for the first time in 60 years. Excitement doesn't do it. Joy is the only word I can use.
Well, thank you. It was a great story.
A lot of people felt the simple joy of watching water slowly reclaim the ground and sticking bare feet into soft new mud. 3 days later, from the air, it was easy to see that the wetland was already getting much wetter. By then, the water from Tomales Bay covered the northern 2/3 of the Giacomini wetland. Its story was just beginning to unfold and would continue for years to come.
Nature's going to do a lot of the work itself, meaning a lot of the replanting, we're going to do some, but it will, again, once we get the water there, the wetlands will reestablish themselves. We've seen it in other places, and it's going to happen here.
It will not only be habitat for wildlife, but it's really a matter of the breathing, this natural, wonderful breathing of this life thing that we have here, that we call nature. And it is the lungs. There it is, the lungs of the bay.
I hope, I don't know, but I hope that with the restoration of this ranch, the south end of the bay will really get a boost of energy. And we may see more shorebirds using Tomales Bay, is what I'm hoping, because I suspect that those that depend on the south end of the bay are going to get a big habitat boost.
Build the framework, invite nature to do the work, and the wildlife should follow. Wintering shorebirds in great numbers, herons and egrets, and many other animals of the air and of the sea. The new Wetlands Nursery will sustain and nurture 4 endangered species: coho salmon, steelhead trout, the red-legged frog, and the tidewater goby. And it will help clean the water of Tomales Bay by doubling the size of the estuary's marshlands. It will restore 12% of the outer coastal wetlands of Central California. The Giacomini wetland is a very big project. And there's something new to see out here every day. In many forms and in many ways, nature has made a stunning comeback at the head of Tomales Bay and at the foot of its surrounding communities.
And I think it's brought some peace to the community, just some natural peace. I think it's been a tremendous asset to the community. I think the community's fallen in love with the wetlands. I think everyone that comes here has fallen in love with the wetlands, and like I say, it's a sense of peace for me.
And it instills a sense of peace in those of us who have a chance to watch the wetlands for ourselves, from high above the shoreline, or from a kayak paddling down the very slough where the water rushed in 2 years ago. The wetlands have become a source of recreation, education, inspiration, and hope to many people from many places.
One day I was out here and these people came out to go on a hike and they didn't know anything about the project, and so they asked me a lot of questions about it. And at the very end, the lady stopped and she said, there's so few things in our lives these days that give us hope, and this really gives me hope to see this.
That just goes to show this isn't just an ecological restoration. It's a restoration of the soul. You know, people's sense of place here has grown and been enhanced by this, and you can just feel your connections with the land come alive.
The Giacomini wetland has not only inspired individuals, it's also inspired institutions throughout the nation.
If you mention the Giacomini wetlands, people know about it. I was in Washington, D.C. last week, and every time I mentioned it, the Army Corps at a legislator's office mentioned the Giacomini wetlands, and they knew about it, and they knew where it was, and they were excited, just as excited as we are. So, it's a U.S. project, it's a national park project, it's a project for everyone.
So I think for the Park Service, when the sense I get when I talk to people in the Park Service is this has really been a model for them, and it's given them inspiration to try to do some of this in their own parks.
And really, for me, it was truly a dream come true, because I love to bird watch, I love getting out there, I love the coast. I mean, so every time I go out there, I just get goosebumps from how precious the spot has even become within 2 years. And I do think when we go back there 20 years from now, it's going to be even more breathtaking and more ecologically valuable than it is today.
For now, endangered tidewater gobies and red-legged frogs, communities of fish, and ducks and shorebirds and bald eagles, animals and plants native to these wetlands are coming home in great numbers. We'll be able to watch them with our own eyes for decades to come and pass this legacy of hope, inspiration, and peace on Tomales Bay from one generation to the next.